When you realize this, everything changes. The world is not a collection of random accidents, but a vast, orderly storehouse of abundance, waiting for the person who possesses the right psychological frequency to unlock its gates. We see the shadows of poverty, the bitterness of failure, and the exhaustion of the masses, and we assume these are the default conditions of human existence. But for a select few, the reality is starkly different. They move through life with a calm, unshakable confidence, attracting wealth, health, and harmony as easily as a magnet attracts iron filings. This is the chronicle of a discovery made by a young, inquisitive mind named Napoleon Hill, who was commissioned by the titan of industry, Andrew Carnegie, to codify a system that would bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The story begins in the smoke-filled, high-stakes environment of the late 19th century, where a Scottish immigrant who started as a bobbin boy in a cotton mill transformed himself into the richest man on earth. Carnegie did not attribute his titanic success to luck or superior genetics, but to a master key that he believed every human being should possess. This key is not a physical object made of iron or gold, but a specific mental configuration, a series of 17 principles that, when used in unison, compel the universe to yield its treasures. The narrative follows the intellectual and spiritual evolution of those who dare to turn this key, revealing that the greatest riches are not those stored in bank vaults, but those residing in the untapped recesses of the human mind. The story takes us back to the pivotal moment when Carnegie challenged Hill to spend 20 years documenting this philosophy. It was a test of character, a moment where the first self, the self of doubt and limitation, had to be cast aside for the second self, the architect of miracles. Carnegie knew that the masses were struggling because they lacked a definite purpose. They were like ships without rudders, drifting in the turbulent seas of life, crashing against the rocks of circumstance. The first and most vital element of the master key is definiteness of purpose. The narrative illustrates this through the lives of figures like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. We see Ford in his humble shed, obsessed with the vision of a horseless carriage. To the neighbors, he was a madman tinkering with junk. To the universe, he was a man with a definite purpose, creating a vacuum that the laws of physics had to fill with results. The story describes the sheer psychological intensity required to hold a vision so clearly that it becomes a physical reality. It is a process of mental alchemy, where a thought form is pressurized by desire until it crystallizes into material wealth. When a man knows exactly what he wants, the very atoms of the environment seem to rearrange themselves to facilitate his progress. Analyzing this phase of the journey, it becomes clear that the world rewards clarity and punishes ambiguity. Most people fail because they want more money or better luck, which are vague phantoms that the mind cannot grasp. The lesson learned is that the universe is a giant mirror. If you present it with a confused image, it reflects back a confused life. Definiteness of purpose is the foundation because it provides the mental blueprint upon which all other riches are built. Without it, energy is dissipated like steam in the open air. With it, that same energy can be harnessed like steam in a piston to move mountains. The narrative teaches that the first step to wealth is the courage to decide, with absolute precision, what one's life is meant to accomplish. This decision acts as a spiritual filter, allowing only relevant opportunities to pass through the conscious mind while discarding the distractions that lead to mediocrity. As the narrative intensifies, we move into the realm of the master mind, the principle that Carnegie considered his greatest secret. The story depicts the lonely struggle of the individual who tries to conquer the world by himself, only to find that his energy is finite and his perspective limited. But then, we see the transformation that occurs when two or more people align their spirits and intellects toward a single goal. Carnegie describes his mastermind group as an invisible third mind that emerged whenever his advisors gathered. It was as if the collective vibration of their focused thoughts tapped into a reservoir of infinite intelligence that was inaccessible to any of them alone. The story portrays this as a mystical yet practical phenomenon. We see the synergy in the Wright brothers' workshop, where two minds operated as one, defying the gravity of centuries. We see it in the high-stakes negotiations of the steel industry, where a small group of men, harmonized by a shared vision, outmaneuvered entire nations. The mastermind is the ultimate multiplier of human potential. It is the realization that no man is an island, and that true riches are found in the harmonious blending of diverse talents and perspectives. The analysis of the mastermind principle reveals a profound truth about human nature. Our power is exponential, not additive. When we find partners who complement our weaknesses and amplify our strengths, we create a psychic force field that attracts success. The lesson here is that the ego is the greatest enemy of wealth. The person who insists on doing it my way or taking all the credit shuts the door to the mastermind. To turn the master key, one must learn the art of harmony. This isn't just about teamwork, it's about spiritual alignment. It teaches that the highest form of intelligence is not found within the individual skull, but in the space between people who are united by a common, noble cause. By subordinating the small self to the collective purpose, the individual becomes a channel for the miraculous. The narrative then dives into the principle of going the extra mile, which Hill describes as the only way to get ahead in a competitive world. The story follows a young clerk, overlooked and underpaid, who decides to apply this law, while others are watching the clock, waiting for the whistle to blow so they can escape their drudgery. This clerk is looking for ways to provide more service than he is paid for. He anticipates the needs of his employer. He stays late to organize the files. He treats every customer with a level of care that borders on the sacred. At first, his coworkers mock him, calling him a sucker for giving away his labor. But the narrative shows the invisible forces at work. By providing excess value, the clerk is actually putting the universe in his debt. The story describes the law of increasing returns, the fact that seeds planted in the soil of service eventually produce a harvest far beyond the initial effort. The miracle occurs when a high-ranking executive from another company observes the clerk's attitude and offers him a position with double the salary and 10 times the opportunity. The extra mile is never crowded, because most people are too busy complaining about the length of the first one. Analyzing this story, we see that the master key requires a shift from a getting mindset to a giving mindset. The lesson is that the only way to receive more is to become more. By doing more than what is expected, you develop a personal magnetism that makes you indispensable. Most people view work as a transaction, an hour of time for $1 of pay. The master key holder views work as an investment. The analysis teaches that the habit of going the extra mile builds the muscle of self-discipline and creates a reputation that precedes you. It is a psychological maneuver that forces the environment to reward you. Because the law of compensation is as immutable as the law of gravity. You cannot give more than you receive in the long run, but you must be willing to give first without the immediate expectation of reward. The narrative continues into the most challenging of all principles, applied faith. We encounter a character who has lost everything, his home, his business, and his standing in the community. He is standing at the precipice of despair. The first self, telling him that it's all over. But Carnegie's philosophy introduces the idea of the seed of an equivalent benefit. The story illustrates that every failure, every heartache, and every disappointment carries within it the seed of an equal or greater advantage. The character learns to look at his wreckage not with tears, but with the eyes of faith. He begins to ask, what is the lesson here? Where is the hidden door? The narrative portrays faith not as a passive hope, but as an active, aggressive state of mind. It is the willingness to act as if success is already certain, even when the physical evidence suggests otherwise. The character starts a new venture with nothing but his experience and his unshakable belief. He doesn't wait for the storm to pass, he learns to dance in the rain. The miracle is the speed with which his fortunes are restored, proving that the mind can manifest out of thin air if it is backed by a faith that refuses to accept the word impossible. The analysis of this segment reveals that faith is the chemical that activates the power of thought. Without faith, the principles of the master key are merely cold logic. With faith, they become a living force. The lesson is that adversity is actually a form of spiritual pruning. It removes the dead branches of our lives so that new, more vibrant growth can occur. The master key holder understands that the universe is not punishing them, but preparing them. By refusing to admit defeat, you actually transform the defeat into a stepping stone. This requires a level of mental control that few possess, but it is the hallmark of the truly wealthy. Faith is the bridge between the finite mind of man and the infinite intelligence of the cosmos. When you walk across that bridge, you leave the realm of struggle and enter the realm of creation. The narrative deepens as we move into the silent powerhouse of the master key, self-discipline. The story introduces us to a man of immense talent but erratic emotions, a brilliant engineer whose temper and lack of focus have left his life in a state of perpetual chaos. He is a slave to his moods, a victim of his own unchecked impulses. Carnegie's philosophy intervenes, teaching him that the man who cannot command himself can never command the riches of the world. The story portrays the mind as a high-powered locomotive, without the tracks of self-discipline. It is merely a dangerous engine of destruction. We watch as the engineer learns to house clean his mental quarters. He begins to police his thoughts, refusing to allow the weeds of anger, jealousy, or procrastination to take root in the garden of his subconscious. The narrative describes the grueling internal battle, the first self fighting for the right to be lazy and reactive, while the second self demands the rigor of a master. The transformation is profound. As he gains control over his tongue and his time, he finds that he suddenly gains control over his environment. His miracle is the restoration of his reputation and the sudden, explosive growth of his influence. He discovers that the greatest empire one can ever conquer is the one that lies within the boundaries of his own skull. Analyzing this psychological shift, it becomes evident that self-discipline is the traffic cop of the mind. It directs the flow of mental energy toward a definite purpose and prevents the collisions of conflicting desires. The lesson learned is that freedom is not the ability to do whatever one wants. It is the power to do what is right and necessary to achieve one's goals. The analysis reveals that the master key cannot be turned by a trembling hand. You must develop the will to stay the course when the initial excitement has faded. Self-discipline acts as the guardian of all other principles, ensuring that going the extra mile and applied faith are not just temporary bursts of enthusiasm, but permanent habits of character. It teaches that the man who masters his own mind becomes the master of everything else. The script then transitions into the vibrant, electric principle of enthusiasm. The story follows a woman who has all the technical skills required for success but lacks the spark that moves others to action. Her life is a series of gray, logical, but uninspired days. She is like a cold furnace, filled with fuel but lacking the match to ignite it. The narrative describes her discovery of controlled enthusiasm, which Hill defines as a state of mind that inspires one to move with a physical and mental glow. She begins to speak with conviction, she walks with a purpose, she infuses her every word with a burning belief in her mission. The story depicts how her new vibration begins to affect everyone around her. It is as if she has turned on a light in a dark room. Prospects who were previously indifferent suddenly feel a compulsion to join her cause. The miracle in her life is the sudden ease with which she navigates the social and professional world. She realizes that enthusiasm is the vitality of the soul, and that it is contagious. It is the force that turns a boring presentation into a movement and a simple product into a revolution. The lesson here is that while logic may convince the mind, only emotion can move the heart. The analysis shows that enthusiasm is the fuel for the mastermind. Without it, a group of people is just a committee. With it, they are a crusade. It teaches us that we can choose our level of enthusiasm by acting, as if, until the feeling becomes a reality. The master keyholder understands that people don't just buy products or services, they buy the energy and the conviction of the person offering them. Enthusiasm is the bridge that allows your second self to communicate directly with the second self of others, bypassing the walls of skepticism and doubt. Next, the story ventures into the intellectual fortress of pleasing personality. We meet a man who is technically a genius but socially a pariah. He is blunt, arrogant, and dismissive of others, believing that his brilliance should be enough to earn him respect. Instead, he finds himself isolated, his ideas ignored, and his career stalled. The narrative describes his humbling realization that the master key is held together by the social glue of human connection. He begins to study the art of the pleasing personality, which is not about shallow flattery, but about a genuine interest in the welfare of others. He learns to listen more than he speaks. He adopts a tone of voice that is resonant and kind. He masters the habit of the smile. The story portrays his transformation from a lone wolf into a leader who people are eager to follow. His miracle is the sudden opening of doors that were previously bolted shut. He discovers that a pleasing personality is a mental lubricant that reduces the friction of human interaction and allows the machinery of success to run smoothly. Analyzing this character's growth, we see that success is a team sport. The lesson learned is that IQ will get you through the door, but EQ, emotional intelligence, will keep you in the room. The analysis shows that a pleasing personality is the outward manifestation of a harmonious inner state. You cannot fake a truly pleasing personality for long. It must be rooted in a genuine respect for others and a lack of ego. It teaches that the master key involves becoming attractive to opportunity by being the kind of person that others want to see succeed. Your personality is the packaging of your purpose. And if the packaging is repulsive, few will care to see what is inside. The narrative then takes a dramatic turn into the principle of accurate thinking. The story introduces a businessman who makes decisions based on hearsay, emotion, and wishful thinking. He is a gambler in the guise of an entrepreneur, constantly chasing the latest trend and reacting to every rumor. His life is a roller coaster of temporary highs and devastating lows. The story depicts his encounter with the concept of accurate thinking, which requires the ability to separate facts from information. He learns to categorize facts into two groups, the important and the unimportant. He begins to use his mind as a laboratory, testing every idea against the cold light of reality. The narrative describes the mental discipline required to ignore one's own biases and to see the world as it truly is, not as one wishes it to be. The miracle is the sudden stability of his business and the precision of his investments. He stops being a victim of luck and starts being a master of results. The analysis of this segment reveals that most people fail because they are mental drifters. They believe what they want to believe rather than what is true. The lesson here is that the master key requires the courage to be honest with oneself. Accurate thinking is the compass of the philosophy. It ensures that your definiteness of purpose is pointed in a direction that actually leads to riches. It teaches us that emotion is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. To think accurately, one must develop a third-person perspective on their own life, observing their thoughts and choices with the detachment of a scientist. This is the only way to avoid the traps of ego and prejudice that keep the masses in poverty. We continue into the realm of cosmic habit force, the silent momentum that Carnegie believed was the ultimate secret to permanence. The story follows a woman who has achieved a measure of success but finds it fleeting. She is constantly starting over, unable to maintain her progress. She feels as though she is fighting an invisible current. The narrative reveals that she has not yet harnessed the habit force. She has been working against her own repetitive patterns rather than with them. She learns to consciously design a set of daily rituals that align with her goals. She automates her extra-mile efforts. She automates her applied faith. The story describes the moment when the current of her life changes direction. Suddenly, it takes more effort for her to fail than it does for her to succeed. The miracle is the effortless nature of her continued growth. She realizes that habit is the flywheel of destiny. It takes a lot of energy to get it spinning. But once it is in motion, it carries you through the dark times with ease. Analyzing this, we find that cosmic habit force is the universe's way of rewarding consistency. The lesson is that we do not achieve success, we habituate it. The analysis shows that the master key is not a one-time event, but a way of living. If you practice the 17 principles until they become as automatic as breathing, you tap into a universal momentum that is irresistible. It teaches that the difference between the lucky and the unlucky is simply the quality of the habits they have programmed into their subconscious minds. By mastering habit, you move from being a striver to being a receiver. The narrative now approaches the final, most profound riches, the riches of health and peace of mind. The story portrays a billionaire who is physically broken and mentally tormented. He has all the material wealth Carnegie promised, but he cannot enjoy a single moment of it. He is a prisoner in a golden cage of his own making. The narrative follows his journey as he applies the master key to his internal world. He learns that health is a mental habit as much as a physical one. He learns that peace of mind is the result of a clear conscience and the habit of service. The story describes the miracle of his recovery, not just of his body, but of his spirit. He begins to use his riches to heal the world, and in doing so, he heals himself. He discovers that the master key to riches is ultimately the key to life itself. The journey through the philosophy of Andrew Carnegie reaches its most transcendent peak as the narrative explores the miracle of the 12 great riches. We follow the final transformation of the protagonist, a man who has accumulated vast material wealth but now faces the ultimate test, the preservation of his sanity and the salvation of his spirit. The story illustrates that the master key is not merely a tool for filling bank accounts, but a blueprint for a balanced, harmonious existence. The narrative depicts the first self of the man, still clinging to the fear of loss, still haunted by the ghosts of his past poverty, but as he integrates the principles of controlled attention and learning from adversity, he begins to understand that the true riches are those that cannot be stolen by thieves or eroded by economic cycles. The story vividly describes the miracle of the quiet mind. For the first time, he experiences a state of being where his internal worth is independent of his external environment. He realizes that peace of mind is the highest form of wealth, the crowning jewel of the 17th principle. This isn't a passive peace, but the dynamic peace of a person who knows they have the power to solve any problem and survive any storm. Analyzing this final stage, we see that the master key provides a hierarchy of values. The lesson learned is that money is a secondary rich. It is the result of a primary wealth that begins with a positive mental attitude. The analysis shows that if a person acquires money without the 12 riches, which include health, love, and a labor of choice, they have not mastered the key, but have been mastered by the lock. The narrative teaches that the ultimate purpose of Carnegie's formula was to create whole, human beings who are as rich in spirit as they are in pocket. This is the psychological maturity required to turn the master key fully, the recognition that you are the steward of your wealth, not its slave. The miracle is the shift from a scarcity mindset, which believes there is not enough to go around, to an abundance mindset, which knows that the supply of the universe is infinite. As the script draws to its conclusion, the narrative focuses on the legacy of the master key itself. We see the ripples of Carnegie's wisdom as they pass from Hill to the millions of readers who followed. The story portrays the master key as a living torch, passed from one generation to the next. It is the story of the clerk who became a CEO, the invalid who recovered her strength, and the bankrupt dreamer who rebuilt an empire. Each of these stories serves as a chapter in a larger, cosmic narrative of human potential. The miracle is the realization that the key is available to anyone, regardless of their station in life, provided they are willing to pay the price of self-discipline and persistence. The narrative ends with the image of the reader holding the key in their own hands, the weight of it representing both the responsibility and the power that comes with the truth. The core message and meaning of the master key to riches, is that success is an exact science, governed by laws as predictable as those of mathematics. Napoleon Hill conveys that true wealth is a state of mind that manifests in physical form through the application of 17 fundamental principles. The book intends to shatter the myth of luck and genius, proving instead that the master key is the habit of thinking and acting in a certain way. Its deepest meaning lies in the revelation that we are the masters of our own destiny because we have the power to control our mental attitude. By aligning one's purpose with the master mind, going the extra mile, and maintaining an unwavering faith, anyone can unlock the storehouse of infinite intelligence. The book serves as a reminder that the world belongs to the person who knows where they are going and refuses to stop until they arrive. The only thing standing between you and the riches of the world is the decision to claim the key that is already in your hand.